Bob is a life coach and an author. He has a book out called Create the Life of Your Dreams. It's about a 96-page book, very easy to read. And if you find that your life is a little bit out of order, or you need a little bit of help getting your dreams and goals put into perspective, he is the gentleman you would want to reach out. You can go to bobkaisercoaching.com or go to the Music of Our Lives page and check him out. So what do you say, ladies? We get going and play a speak or talk themed song, and then of course, we'll take a break and ask Gina some questions about the app to speak. What do you say?
Sounds fun to me.
Great. Well, we're going to go to 1991 here. This charted number 5 in the U.S. from her Luck of the Draw album, from Miss Rate. Have memories of going to Jefferson College, being in the Man of La Mancha chorus. Food, wine, Aldanza! The story of Don Quixote, right? So Sheila, who is, she played Aldanza actually. She used to pick me up for rehearsals, and this would be on the radio. And here is Something to Talk About from Bonnie Raitt. You're listening to The Music of Our Lives with your host Michael Corley and Kay on mycitymymusic.com. Good morning, Gina. Again.
Good morning.
We're going to talk about her app that she has currently for the iPad. It's called App to Speak. First of all, if you want to call in and ask Gina a question or a question for Kay or I, the number here is 515-599-1687, or you can chat with us live on Spreaker.com. Go to the Music of Our Lives page, and I will give you numbers, Kay, in just a second of how many we have listening. But first of all, Gina, I wanted to ask you, you told us a little bit about your background, of course. What is the difference between a speech therapist and a speech pathologist?
That's a good question. Speech pathologists and a speech therapist are the same profession. The interchange of speech pathologist, when you graduate from college, you graduate with a speech pathology degree. So we are considered as professionals in speech pathology, hence speech pathologists. I remember when I worked in the schools, I was recognized as a speech therapist, sometimes a speech teacher. So it's the same person, it's the same degree, it's just the level of sometimes the environment, what you refer to.
Mm-hmm. And so where do they work, basically? Mostly in just schools or hospitals or where?
Yes, speech pathologists work in schools. They work in home health environments, mm-hmm. hospitals, skilled nursing facilities, outpatient rehab, so a wide variety of environments.
Mm-hmm. And what got you into this profession, if you can just touch on that briefly?
I'm very compassionate, and I like to work with people, and I do like to communicate. I feel that it's very important for people in general to be able to communicate.
Mm-hmm. Was there something specifically in your life that made you decide, okay, this is what I want to do, or some experience in your life that just, made you realize, okay, that's what I want to study?
Actually, there's a funny story. After high school, I went to Merrimack Community College, and I was just taking general classes. Mm-hmm. And they had this program on a computer that was called ZG. And it was like a personality test. And I answered all these questions, and at the end it gives you the results of what occupations you might be good in. Speech pathology, occupational therapy, a teacher, physical therapist, and some others, recreational therapists, and a few others were the results for me. Mm-hmm. Then, looking at the list, I looked through what type of courses that were needed, and when I saw the ones that required some math and some music, I kind of weeded out, and I liked anatomy at the time, biology, not the same, but biology, the sciences, and so I didn't want to learn a lot about the muscles. That would have been physical therapy, a lot of insertion.
All the things to remember. Oh my goodness, yeah.
So I decided to take from the shoulders up and learn all about the brain, communication, speech, hearing, language.
That's awesome.
It's so important too to help
mm-hmm.
others who need, the extra help in their lives.
Well, you pretty much summed up my next question, how do they help? And you pretty much touched all of those points. And then who do they help? You also touched that, but if you want to embellish, of course, feel free.
So a speech therapist basically works with individuals, whether they're infants to seniors, with either their speech production, language, comprehension, hearing, and there's more, but basically, everything that is involved with communication and helping people that may have suffered from a medical condition or born with a medical condition related to speech, communication, language.
Mm-hmm. Great. And how did you stumble across, well, not really stumble, but how did Apt to Speak come to be for you?
Well, early in my career, the first 10 years, I worked in a school with mentally and physically challenged individuals from ages 3 to 21. And again, that was many years ago. And I made a lot of communication boards with pictures and with words. And back then, the technology wasn't as sophisticated as it was today. So I had experience working with communication devices, or systems, as we called it back then. And recently, about 5 years ago, I was in a skilled nursing facility working with a couple of senior ladies who had a stroke and were speech impaired. And I was trying out different technology, speech generating technology with them. And they were frustrated because they weren't able to use it. Some were complicated, some were just too expensive. Mm-hmm. And one day when I walked into a lady's room, she was on Skype with an iPad holding up a picture word communication board that I had developed for her. And I just saw the frustration on the daughter's face and on my client's face. And I said, there has to be something simple out there. And she's using an iPad. So I did research and didn't find anything exactly what I had envisioned. And so wrote down some ideas and decided to develop Apt to Speak.
That's great.
That's amazing.
So obviously you have a lot of computer and technology knowledge to like, who helps you develop these apps, or this app actually? You did it yourself, obviously, or?
I did.
Uh-huh.
I created and designed the app, but I have a independent software consultant that actually writes the code. And then I have the support of my brother, who helps me with some technical computer 3D graphics for other parts of Apt to Speak, along with my son and my nephew helping with videos and photos.
That's great. And what is a speech disorder?
So speech disorder basically is someone that is unable to speak, whether they suffered a medical event, whether their speech is dysarthric, which is like a slurred or slowing, unintelligible speech, or there's apraxia of speech, which is found, can be found in children, but that's more of a motor planning. And sometimes it could be someone that just maybe, deaf. Well, obviously deaf people, they can't hear, so their speech is not as clear and intelligible. Of course, they have their own way to communicate through their sign language. Mm-hmm. So that's important. But so to sum up, a speech impairment is basically someone who is unable to communicate via verbal speech.
Mm-hmm. And the percentage of the population who possesses speech disorder, what would you say?
The research that I've showed, there's about 40 million Americans who have communication disorders. Mm-hmm. But there's also those that have trouble using their voice. There's also children on the autism spectrum that have trouble communicating.
My niece Caitlin, as we discussed, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there's, the statistics are out there. It's because there's different categories of speech disorders.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And with your app, Gina, you can create and make it like your personal own. It's not just set in stone what it comes with. You can delete things, add things, create pictures, make it more towards your lifestyle, individualized.
Absolutely. And that would be on the custom pages. So App to Speak, it has 4 preset pages using real photos of a want or a need with speech output to indicate that want or a need. There is also a feature for text to speech for someone who is able to type in a message. They're unable to speak, but they could type in a message and the message would have the speech output to express that want or a need. The custom pages, as you're referring to, Kay, start on page 5, and that's where families can take pictures within App to Speak, custom pictures, maybe of family members or specific toys or specific items that are favorite of that individual that's needing the speech output, and take picture, put the word, and then a speech output phrase or a sentence for that. They can also upload from the internet a picture, say a picture of McDonald's or a favorite restaurant. So the custom pages really personalize for that individual wants and needs.
That's great.
Now, what makes your app unique is that there's not an ongoing fee. They basically just pay a one-time fee. It's $79.99. Is that correct, Gina?
Yes, the $79.99. You purchase the app through iTunes.
iTunes.
And the app is the full version with the features that I'm describing. And as I add more features to help in others in other ways, you will get the updates as well.
And also a tutorial, I would assume, as you're going through the app, or does it come with a separate DVD? I'm a little technology declined, I should say.
Yes, we do know that.
I know Justin always has to help me with screens over here. You just X'd out of this. Hold on.
You can't find a tab to save his life.
I know, I can't find a tab to save my life.
That's actually a good question. On the app itself, there's a question
Especially
mark.
for our seniors who have this, or have a speech need, that they would need to know, how do I learn how to use this?
So to learn how to use it, there's a question mark on the top of the app. And so you hit the question mark and it's a help page. So there's written directions and features that you can turn on or off. It's explained in the help page. And there's also, if you have a connection to the internet, I have a demonstration video to show you how to move pictures, turn pictures on and off, take a picture within the app, share pages. So it's pretty easy to use. You can also go to the website and there's demos and information on apptospeak.com as well.
Nice.
Great.
Should we go to a song?
I think so, and then we can come back and touch some more real key points for App to Speak with Gina Baldwin here in the studio. And we're going to go to 1980 on this Talk Speak edition from the Casablanca label. Once I find the song, bear with me here. And the lyric in the chorus, when it says, I talk about it, talk about it, talk about it, I used to think they were saying, well, a chocolate party, chocolate party, chocolate party.
Of course you can think
I know,
about
of
chocolate.
course. Yeah, I'm a fat guy.
You must
so,
love chocolate.
I love chocolate and peanut butter, Gina. That's what I really love.
That's his weakness.
But yeah, Reese's. Anyway, this one went to #1 over here, and #2 across the note, darling, over in the UK. This is Lip Sync Spunky Town for this Talk Speak edition of the Music of Our Lives with guest Gina Baldwin and your host Michael Corley and Kay on mycitymymusic.com. Gina Baldwin would be proud. Yeah. Gina Baldwin, who is a speech therapist in the studio with us, talking about her app to Speak. You can go to apptospeak.com. Where else can they find information about the app, Gina?
Apptospeak.com, Facebook, App to Speak, Instagram, Twitter.
They just type in, like, as far as Twitter, do you know your address at Twitter, or they can just type in app to speak and probably find it with a hashtag,
I
right?
believe
Yeah,
so.
I looked it up and it just pops up, like the actual, the
Beautiful.
picture, yeah.
Hey, I'm technology. I can't even say it.
You're
Technologically
impaired.
Thank you. Did they make an app for that? I don't know.
I don't know. I'll start thinking and create one for you.
Right. But you and Kay, during the break here, had a really good conversation. Kay, you were mentioning to Gina, if you want to embellish on that.
Well,
Yeah, or the question that you had.
sure, so obviously it's not covered by insurance, and why is that?
It's not covered insurance because it's not considered a durable medical piece of equipment. It is a software application. So a durable medical piece of equipment is something it's considered to be strictly for that medical condition. So a speech generating device, and there's a lot that are covered under the durable medical equipment and covered by insurance, because it is a piece of equipment. It is a computer that is solely for speech output and language learning. And so it's a dedicated, so durable medical.
As opposed to your app, which is just an app.
Correct.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And facilities, they, how do you get the word out? How does that happen?
By coming on your radio station and listening to some good music.
Oh, I love it.
Getting the word out, well, I've been reaching out to my professional organization, American Speech Language Hearing Association. In fact, I just wrapped up a 13-day online CEU on aphasia, and I was one of, I believe, 8 co-sponsored, which means I had a virtual exhibit booth, and I got to take online CEUs about aphasia. It was a great experience. So that's one way.
That's awesome.
Great. Awesome. And we were also talking on the break too. We wanted to know who, we kind of talked about who Apt to Speak helps, but if you wanted to embellish on it a little bit more.
Sure. Well, Apt to Speak can help any individual that has a speech impairment. Now, I say any, and I put that actually in quotes because it's based on the potential. It's not a one-size-fits-all. So there are specific requirements that a person would need to have in order to use Apt to Speak. But I made it to be very simple and easy to use, that someone like you, who's technically impaired
Right.
or challenged,
Right.
I should say, that you would be able to use it should you need some
That's
help
why I
with
love my
communication.
iPhone. Yeah. Apple, I will give Apple that. They make things easier. That's great. Well, just like we were talking yesterday briefly when we met up about, it's not, I mean, people with autism could use this app. Even Kay mentioned, I guess, I mean, it's not really geared for parents who are trying to,
Isn't it more like maybe dementia patients and
people who've had strokes.
Yes, people that have strokes, I am aware of some people using it with dementia, not using the whole complete package of Apt to Speak, but there are certain pieces and parts that people are using. I've had a lot of interest lately through my website, people contacting me and wanting to try it with students and students on the nonverbal students on the autism spectrum. And I'm waiting to get feedback, and it's the custom feature that they are looking to help with that nonverbal communication, because they can custom those pictures to that student.
Mm-hmm.
In addition, I have several other people that are trying out Apt to Speak. They've reached out and are on a free trial, and one of them has
How long is that free trial? I didn't mean to interrupt, but when they get to do a free trial?
I run the free trial through Apple's test flight, so they pretty much, it's based on their terms and conditions.
I
So
see.
once I set one up, the clock ticks. So it starts at 90 days. Currently, I think I'm down to 60 days. But when this one ends, I can also start another trial. So I'm trying to do ongoing trial, but so it just varies because it counts down from the 90 days.
Mm-hmm. And people learn at different paces and having the time to customize each page.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And so there's one person that is using it. She is a subset of ALS called Bulbar. And I'm waiting to get her feedback, but I have a success story of another acquaintance of mine who has the Bulbar, the subset of ALS. And basically, they're physically doing well, but their speech and their swallowing muscles are impaired. And so the one client that she's not a client, the one friend and acquaintance, she is using the text-to-speech part. And as she puts it, and she has one of the durable medical pieces of equipment. She has, I think it's Talk to Me Technologies, or a computer with Talk to Me technology in it, that has all these categories and kind of layers or pages that she can go to restaurant and this, that, and layers. Plus, it does email, internet, so it's kind of a big computer. But what she says she likes and why she has apt to speak is she loves throwing her iPad in her purse. So when she goes places, she can go right to that text-to-speech and type in her message to communicate what she wants.
Right.
That's amazing.
And some people find that, they don't, some people might criticize and say, oh, this is, I don't want this app to speak to be a crutch. But
that is a very good point. So when we talk about different speech impairments, let me focus just for a few minutes on aphasia.
Sure.
When someone suffers a stroke and has aphasia, they also develop depression, feeling of isolation, and they also, sometimes their personality changes. And in some, they feel that if they don't continually work on improving their speech, whether they have dysarthria or apraxia or anomia, whatever it may be, if they don't work on their speech, they feel that they're not going to be, whole, and they don't want to have that crutch, that speech-generating device.
Well, we all have a basic human need, Gina, of wanting to be heard and understood. So
Absolutely.
That makes total sense.
Absolutely. And I'm a firm believer in holistic, whatever category we want to talk about holistic. But for communication, if the speech impairment is not improving, you can use the speech generating communication like apt to speak. It will help reduce your frustration and you'll feel less socially isolated. But in the same time, with the speech output, with the visual, the photos, the words, you're getting the stimulus. So it's actually has the potential to enhance, and you still practice your own speech and practice until it improves. So it's not a crutch, it's actually a stepping stone.
Great.
My dad has Parkinson's, and just in the last 2 years, you can see a decline within his speech. He's softer when he talks. When he does go to talk, he kind of goes in circles, trying to get what he wants out. So I'm seeing in the future maybe something like the text to talk, just to get it out, to help him sometimes.
Absolutely. It'll reduce that frustration, and
He does get easily frustrated, Gina, just even before he got this disease, bless his heart.
So it's like he just wants to give up, or he'll just say, oh, I'll just shut up, or he's afraid to go out to see his friends because he feels he's making a fool of himself.
yes.
And that's hard. That's
I've
so
seen that.
hard.
I've seen that
Going
many
back to the
times.
isolation, yeah. Well, why don't we just jump back into this gentleman here from 1982's Success Hasn't Spoiled Me Yet. He's on the 80s cruise right now with Mark, Nina, and Alan, which you tweeted Alan today, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Because Alan's the only one that responds, so Mark and Nina reach out. No,
I did
we
not
love
know that Rick was 67. I saw
Looks
it in People
darn
Magazine
good.
yesterday.
Darn good. He was in General Hospital, of course, and this one has the dogs in the back of a limo. Remember that album cover, Kay?
I do.
Went to number 2 over here on this talk edition. Here's Don't Talk to Strangers on the Music of Our Lives with guest Gina Baldwin. We're a music nostalgic show where we dive back into the decades of the 60s all the way up until today, take one-word themes. build the playlist around them. We're brought to you in part by BobKaiserCoaching.com, and we have guest host Gina Baldwin in the studio with us today. Good morning, Gina, again.
Good
and
morning.
Welcome. I know, you're going to get tired of all these good mornings, aren't you?
I'm enjoying the music.
Aren't you? Taking you back to 1982?
Absolutely.
What were you doing in 82?
I was actually finishing up at the community college.
Nice.
Getting ready to head to
Figuring out this is what you wanted to do with your life.
Absolutely.
I love that. That's awesome. There was a question I wanted to ask you. Thank you. Oh, yes. Thank you, Gina. Keeping me on track here. We need some callers. Do you have a question for Gina or Kay or myself? Call in at 515-599-1687. And we're talking with Gina today about her app to Speak. And what would you say makes your app so unique as opposed to other tools that are out there now, Gina?
Well, the feedback that I've been getting is the use of real photos, the ability to easily custom the real photos, the text-to-speech, inexpensive, pretty much sums it up.
Mm-hmm. Are you the first one to develop an app like this, would you say? Or
No,
Okay.
no.
I was just wondering.
There are a lot of other apps out there. What I see out there are more developed towards children, towards the autism spectrum, because they are using more children-type pictures or symbols, icons, where I wanted to focus on the real photos, the live photos
That's what
of
makes it
objects.
different.
Yes.
Gina, can you tell me on the, I know that we saw this, so on the app, you can Bluetooth. So say you have a family, and you had mentioned how you can Bluetooth, is it questions, or you're communicating, or trying to, is it like a group message, if you will, if you're like on a text? How is that? How are you, tell us about how you can Bluetooth in a family scenario.
Great question.
That's wonderful, Kay, yes.
And I have two answers.
Great.
One's going to segue from a little bit from the question.
Sure.
So the Bluetooth is for the sharing of custom pages.
Gotcha.
So it's not like a text message or an instant message. So the scenario would be dad had a stroke, unable to communicate, and the family has 2 iPads, or one of the daughters has an iPad, and she wanted to make a page for dad so dad could communicate about her family. So she adds the personal pictures of her family's personality, maybe stories that they shared with dad. She creates the page on her iPad, having App to Speak loaded in it. Then she can Bluetooth to dad's and slide that page over. So you wouldn't have to be redundant with putting in the same pictures and the words. So basically you're
Because that can get real confusing, yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So you do need 2 iPads with 2 App to Speak software on it to be able to do it. To segue a little bit, a speech therapist who is trying it or using it as an educational communication tool with maybe a student can put a page together for Johnny based on his wants and needs and his level of ability, and then have another page for Susie. And when the students are ready to have those pages loaded, this teacher can load Johnny's to Johnny, Susie's to Susie's.
Right.
So that's one feature. So the feature of the Bluetooth. The other feature of the Bluetooth is the fact that the iPad has a lot of accessibility features. Did you know that? Well, it does. So if you go to settings into accessibility, there are options for scanning, touch accommodations, and a lot more. So if there is someone out there using App to Speak, and say they have Parkinson's, where their speech is unintelligible and they're using App to Speak, but they also have the tremors. If you go to the accessibility features,
My friend Bob, but he's on a new medicine that is helping his speech speed up a little bit, but helping him with the tremors. But yeah.
So if they have the tremors, and so App to Speak, because you swipe and slide from page to page or you press select, you can change the touch accommodations So they have to have a certain pressure before the picture will speak, or a slide, when you slide, it has to have a certain touch pattern, so when you slide the page over, it just doesn't slide real quick. It gives the person that has the tremors or the ataxia time to really choose and be more accurate.
Wow.
Yeah, so you don't pick the
That's a
wrong
great-
picture.
That's a great
That is
feature.
unbelievable. They thought of that. You thought of everything.
In addition, too, with those accommodations, the Apple iPad in the accessibility features has a switch control. So App-to-Speak is accessible to Bluetooth switching, which, Kay, I think you were referring to with the switching part. If someone needed, because of a physical condition, they would have a Bluetooth switch, say a touchpad or a joystick where they move it side to side, and they turn on that switch accessibility to whichever they need, whichever switch, and Bluetooth it through to App-to-Speak.
Wow.
So we have the targets all built in, programmed in for a switch.
That is so cool.
That is great.
What a I mean, that's awesome. Now, you say, of course, it's only available through Apple right now, but you are working on Android?
Yes, I'm excited to say my software developer,
Mhm.
he is currently working on the development for the Android platform because I've had a lot of requests for it to be on the tablet.
I
And
don't
it's-
like Android.
I do. See, I was looking. I'm like, why can't I find it?
Opposites
In my
attract.
Google. So it's good to know.
Yes, and we anticipate App-to-Speak to be on the Android platform coming up this spring.
And then, can you tell me, I know there's so many languages out there, and we're in a world that sometimes you just have to know other languages. Is this app able to change to different languages?
That is a very, very good question. I knew you were going to ask that.
Well, because we have all these listeners in where, Madagascar now?
Oh, yeah.
Giving a shout out to our
Everywhere.
all the love to Madagascar.
So currently, App-to-Speak is just for English, but the custom pages, again,
Mhm.
have another area where you put your custom pictures in there, and you change your accessibility to your keyboard, to your language, to whatever language it is, and you type it in. So if you were in China and wanted to be and spoke Chinese,
Mhm.
then you would the custom pages in Chinese.
Nice.
And currently, Gina, you have how many languages besides English? Is it 4? did you say?
Just English.
Oh, just English.
Just for
Okay,
the
I'm
for the
sorry.
preset pages.
Okay.
So I know there's so many features with App-to-Speak. So the
Mhm.
preset pages, to clarify, the preset pages are in English only.
Okay.
When you do the text-to-speech feature, you can type it in whatever language you want.
Gotcha.
Okay, you
Oh.
have to set that up on the
Okay.
iPad, what language you're going to be
Sure.
speaking.
I misunderstood yesterday then.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And then along with those two items, the custom pages can be customized into your own language. So it's just the preset pictures. However, I'm hoping within the next 8 months that I will bring those preset pictures up to speed with some additional languages aside
Nice.
from English.
And can you tell us real quick about how many countries you could find App-to-Speak in?
So far, about 6 different countries: Mexico, Australia, Europe, Switzerland, United Kingdom.
Very nice.
I don't know if I hit them all, but App-to-Speak has gone international.
That is a huge accomplishment.
Incredible.
I'm excited.
Congratulations.
Thank
See,
you.
on cloud nine, man, that's awesome.
I am. Thank
Like
you.
George Harrison's album from 1987. It's always a song with me.
Yes, it is.
Or an album. Kay, and Gina, what do you say we go back to 1979 when he was on the top of the Pops, went to #1 across the moat, and #7 over here. He is pretty much considered the Australian Elvis, if you will. And he's a good friend of Livy's, Miss Olivia Newton-John. Here's Cliff Richards on this Talk Edition. We don't talk anymore. You're listening to the music of our lives on mycitymymusic.com. Oh, I love this song. It's old school. How are we doing on time, Gina?
We're good.
Good, okay.
No callers though.
I know, we're gonna a speech therapist, and she has a new app out. Well, it's not necessarily new. How many years did you say?
It's
5?
been out, no, not quite 5. It's been out about 3.5, 4 years.
3.5, 4 years. It's called App to Speak. You can go to apptospeak.com for more information. Kay, do you have another question for Gina that you wanted to ask?
I was going to ask her about is this link on your page, the apptospeak.com, is that like a YouTube, is this like your
A tutorial, you mean,
tutorial, or is it just you're just telling about it, getting people familiar with it? How is
The YouTube video on the homepage?
Yes.
That is an actual demonstration
Oh,
of
nice.
how App to Speak works, how you can work with App to Speak, and how it will help you.
Great.
There's another video, I think, on the About page that is actually a story about someone that is using App to Speak.
It's always really helpul to know who is using the apps and software and see how it works with them.
How many would you say are using it currently, Gina, if we haven't covered that already?
It's pretty hard to say because I have, I only know location, and I have given out free apps. So I guess I would estimate about 1,000 people that I'm aware of.
That are using it, and
That's-
it's been a great tool for
That's
them.
more than what I would thought, because I didn't realize it was out that long, but 1,000's a lot of people to have the need for this kind of software.
It is, and I'd like to reach more people who I think can benefit from this.
Sure.
Would you say, I mean, are those 1,000 more in the demographic of the St. Louis area, or just all over?
It's all over. When you're a developer on iTunes, and of course because of our privacy, so I don't know I only know the demographics. So I know what the if it was bought on an iPad mini or an iPad, and I know what country. So United
Oh,
States,
cool.
Canada, Mexico. I'm provided that information. So, and because of HIPAA,
Definitely.
They don't give out
I was going to say
anything,
that.
you know,
Yeah.
cities or break it down anymore.
No. Or
But
personal information, right?
Right. And I have a lot of people, speech pathologists and users that are wanting to use App to Speak, reaching out, giving me a little bit of information. I'm still always waiting to hear more feedback.
And then, if you're out and about and all of a sudden something comes to your mind, are you able to fastly get to your web developer and say, hey, I thought of this, why haven't I thought of this, how fast can we get this back on the software? How does that work, the whole process?
That happens quite often.
That's a great question.
It is a great question. Because at one point in time, about 2 years ago, I had probably a couple handful of people say, hey, I really need it in Spanish. I really need it in Spanish. 2 days, so I was communicating with my software developer. We had Spanish translated for the preset pictures. And then someone said, or gave me feedback, I should say. I had another couple handful of another
That's so
feature.
cool that the public is helping you develop this in a way. It's just amazing, Gina. I love it.
Thanks.
Uh-huh.
And so I had to prioritize. So the Spanish went to the back burner because there was something that I thought was more of a need. So good question, how quick? It depends. He does this on the side. My software developer gets things to me as quick as possible
Sure.
with doing it on the side. And so it's been amazing, all the ideas and the development. If you would have saw App to Speak 3.5, 4 years ago, what features I had then and the features that I have now it's just incredible.
Leaps and bounds, yeah.
Yes.
And now, where you work now, are you able to promote App to Speak? to your work environment?
I'm
Or is there
able
a
to,
clause that says you can't?
well, I'm able to promote it. I act as a consultant in that role, not as the speech pathologist professional caring for that individual.
Mhm. Very good.
Good question.
I know, I love this. You can check out Apt to Speak. Go to apttospeak.com. You can even find Gina on Facebook, right?
Yes.
Gina, what's your full name on Facebook, or do you not want to?
Well, I think it's apt to speak.
Apt
Yeah,
to Speak. Just go to
Facebook
Apt to Speak. That's fine.
It's a business page.
Oh, that's
Yes.
great. Wonderful. We're going back to our birth here now, Kay.
Oh, dang.
Oh, dang. Watch out. From the Brothers Gibb. Went to #1 over here. #5 Across the Moat. From their main course album. And it's one of my faves. And I'm sure it is yours. On this Talk Edition, here's Jive Talkin'. You're listening to The Music of Our Lives with your host Michael Corley and Kay and guest host Gina Baldwin. Barry's the only one left. Bless his heart.
Aw.
But he does have his nieces and nephews that sometimes go out on the road with him. And of course his children too are successful musicians and producers. So I'm happy for him. It's great. And of course remember he produced Samantha Sang's Emotion.
One of my faves.
Oh, remember that one, Gina?
That's a good song.
Isn't that great?
Yes.
Yeah, some people just think it's the Bee Gees, but it was
No,
Miss
yeah.
Samantha. Miss Samantha Sang. Anyway, we have Gina Baldwin in the studio with us, talking about her app to Speak. And Gina, if you want to reiterate where they can go to get more information about your app, feel free, please.
Yes, if you want more information about Apt to Speak, which is a software application for the iPad, you can go to apttospeak.com, which is my webpage. You can find it on iTunes, but as you know, iTunes has so many apps it'll be very hard. So it'll be easier just to go to apttospeak.com
Very
and
good.
follow the links there.
Mm-hmm. And can you share with us any stories, Gina, whether, people that have had successes with App to Speak or just stories in general about your app?
Sure. I have one special story that I like to share. I was doing some PRN work, which means as needed when there was an overflow at an outpatient clinic. And I was doing that a couple years ago, about a year ago, and I had a patient who suffered a stroke and was unable to speak, except he could say some curse words.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he was just real frustrated. Well, again,
Excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt, but that reminds me of your cousin John, or your uncle John,
Mhm.
Carrie.
Yeah.
He had a stroke, or many strokes. They were kind of like meteor showers, and then that's all he could say cuss words very clear.
Yes.
Yeah, it was
It's
just,
amazing.
yeah, uh-huh.
Mhm.
it's
Sorry.
amazing. That's
That
okay.
just made me think of John.
The brain does amazing things.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so I had met him. He was on my schedule, and they were trying a couple of speech generating devices. And they had asked for me to bring Apt to Speak and try it with them. So I had showed him Apt to Speak. After that day was done with my schedule, I reported back to the main speech therapist about, the progress of all the people that I had seen that day. About 2 months later, I was asked to cover again for about 4 hours. And this gentleman was on my caseload again. He's all smiling, sits down, grabs his backpack, pulls out an iPad, turns it on, brings up Apt to Speak, and goes to the custom pages, hits a picture of a beer mug, and it says, "Beer me." And he starts laughing. And then he goes to another custom page, and it's a picture, and I see other pictures too. There's like brushing teeth, some hygiene pictures. Well, there was one with a razor and a mustache, and he just grinned at me from ear to ear, and he selected that picture, and it said, "Honey, can you help me shave? I have boogers in my mustache." And he just laughed. He had a humor, and so the custom pages, I was so happy that. Well, I was surprised, actually. I didn't know, because I don't know who actually purchases it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a great experience. It brought
To
tears
see
to
it,
my eyes.
of course.
And the fact that, the family time to customize those pictures and put it in the language or the words that he would communicate.
They're giving him a voice, and you're giving him a voice, Gina.
That's
That is
great.
amazing.
And so, yes, it's great.
I love that it's not your typical Siri voice, you know,
Oh.
like you can use your own and make it,
Or a loved one's.
Yes.
Yeah. And what it's neat too, and I don't know if we've already touched it, but if you want to add or take things away, there's a very easy way in the tutorial to do that without having it making it so difficult and complicated or
Correct.
confusing.
Correct. On the preset pages, meaning they're preset and they're there, you can turn those on or off, meaning the picture can be there or not, and you can move them around in order that maybe be of importance. For example, maybe the person doesn't wear
Like
glasses.
how you move icons and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so maybe the person doesn't wear glasses, so you would turn the picture of the glasses off. The other thing in the custom pictures, which Kay, I think you brought up, and Michael, you did too, is you can record your own voice. So for example, instead of using the Siri voice, which these are, it's a male and a female Siri voice.
Instead of one like this.
Exactly. You can record your own voice, your brother's voice, your loved one's voice, or whoever. So a voice can be recorded for that picture. So if I need to shave my mustache, I may use my brother's recording or, a male recording. So, and that's kind of a good feature. And the voice recording are endless. So you guys, I took a picture of the runaway bunny. It was one of my favorite books I liked to read to my son when he was young. So I took a picture of the runaway bunny and I put it on the custom pages.
I've never heard of that story, to be honest. No. I've never heard of
Never.
that. No,
No,
she
never.
looked at me.
It's
No.
cute.
Oh, okay.
I'll have to show you.
Yeah.
And so I sat down, so I took a picture and I recorded. I read the book, Runaway Bunny, as if I was reading it to my son or my great niece.
Mm-hmm.
And so the moral of this story is the speech, when you record your own speech, is endless. I don't know when it'll stop. So I read the whole book, and so if I were speech impaired,
If you hear me before you see me, I got King Kong in the trunk. King Kong, King.
Now I remember the pokey little puppy. Oh, we do have a caller. Caller, you're on the air.
and so what are you talking about over there?
but it's easy if you need to use app to speak. It's very easy.
Because it's Apple.
Exactly.
Okay? I'm an Apple snob. Oh, I watched that caller would call back. But anyway.
So it's endless custom pages,
Mhm.
endless using your voice recording. You can sing happy birthday.
Nice.
Really
Nice.
personalize and customize.
I liked how, like, if you're out and about, like, we're at Breadco, and you're like, okay, I'm taking a picture, and then, I want to go to the bread company. You just make it however you want it to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm. To communicate.
Or if you have, like, inside jokes that you can remember that's how you had things, you could probably make them like that, too, couldn't you?
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
I was thinking
It's-
of books as a kid that I did read, Gina. Was remember the pokey little puppy?
Really?
You know, you remember, it was a golden book, I know that, but that's one of them that I remember as a child. But getting back to that, yeah, you could definitely record, and it never, like you said, it never ends, right? Like you can make it as the voice app as long as you want,
Yes.
or your voice.
As far as I know, I haven't timed it out, and I've tried a lot. But
Mhm.
I think it's just a good option, to use a more personal voice if you care.
It
If you
is.
care to.
Well, if there's no other questions, it was wonderful having you here with us, Gina.
Thank you.
It was wonderful meeting
Pleasure,
you.
yes.
You're a lovely lady, and
And you're helping so many people. It's a gift that you have. It's great.
we're really grateful to have you here in the studio with us today.
Thank you. I
Talking about
appreciate
app to speak.
appreciate you
And
having me.
it's
It's great.
$79.99.
$79.99. You can get it through iTunes. You can go to the www.orjustapptospeak.com, and if there's any other questions later on, feel free to post it on our Spreaker.com, or you can call us here at the studio 515-599-1687. We were a little sensitive about putting this one on the list, Gina. But you were like, no, you guys, put it on there. I love that song, because I wanted to be a little sensitive.
Right.
Kay and I were like, don't speak. No, we want people to speak, but for music purposes, this is it's appropriate for this talk speak edition. Here's
Yes.
No Doubts, Don't Speak. Gwen wrote this with her brother.
Really?
Yeah, her brother Eric Stefani before he left the band. And originally it was a love song, but after Tony Kanal dumped Gwen, it became a song about heartbreak. We're just wrapping up our guest host here that we had in the studio today, Gina Baldwin. Thank you so much for coming in today and talking about your app, App to Speak.
My pleasure. I've had a lot of fun.
It
Thank you.
It was great. It was just a really nice conversation, very informative. You can go to apptospeak.com to learn more about it. You can like her or the app on Facebook, and go to the Apple Store and purchase it. It's $79.99. It's a one-time fee, so it's not like you're paying monthly. And as you get more and more upgrades, it's such a value, Gina. It's incredible. And
That was my goal.
And it's so easy to use. I know I would use it if I needed it.
And I know you're dying to talk about her purse over there.
Yes, I am. I saw that bag. I go, I'm like, oh my gosh, tell us about the bag that you made that has, like, the App to Speak logos, and then also it is
And
darling.
her shirt says it too.
Yeah, she's got her zip up. I saw that, but the purse is really getting me.
Oh, the App to Speak. You're talking about my App to Speak bag.
Yes, your App to Speak bag.
This is strip quilting.
It's awesome, and I love the colors in it. Of course,
So
the
I took-
orange. Mhm.
Yeah, so well, that's App to Speak's colors, orange,
Mhm.
kind of lime green, and blue. And so I took pictures from App to Speak and put them on a specific piece of fabric, and then used other fabric and did a strip quilt bag so I can carry all my App to Speak things in it.
I can see that in the future, accessories down the line for you, Gina.
You gotta promote.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's awesome. Such a talented, smart, and giving and loving lady. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks again, you
Mhm.
guys. Appreciate it.
All right. You have a great afternoon.
Thanks.
Or morning, I should say. We're still in the
We're
morning,
still
right?
in the morning.
Still in the morning.
Okay. Well, with the App to Speak interview that we just had, we were inspired to do a Talk Speak edition here on the Music of Our Lives. So, Kay, what do you say we just dive back on in?
Let's dive.
We're going to go 1985 with Tears for Fears.
There we go.
Not Head Over Heels, that is one of my favorites of theirs, but this is from Songs from the Big Chair. The very first track, Shout, on this Talk Speak edition.
Shout.